Dexy's Midnight Runners. Right said Fred. Let's admit it. Vanilla Ice. And now, Chris and Tom. This is our one hit wonder. This is Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek.
And this is our One Hit Wonders episode. Wasn't quite sure where to start with this. This was a suggestion from a listener who I want to say should go anonymous only because it's one of the only listeners that ever gives us any suggestions. But this is Andy's suggestion. Andy's basically producing our show from afar, I think, at this point. But he thought that might be an interesting one. And I think you actually brought that up as a potential topic very early on, and we just finally got around to it.
Well, and it's funny how things happen because I was driving around in the car just the other day and some song came on, and it was one of the, I don't even remember which one it was now. I should, but it was one of those one hit wonders. I don't know why, but I was like, I wonder what the top one hit wonder is, and I thought for sure it would have been "Relax" by Frankie. Frankie Does Hollywood. Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
He did do Hollywood.
He did do Hollywood.
But first he had to go there.
First he had to go to Hollywood, and then he recorded the song "Relax." But I don't even see "Relax" in any of the top lists anywhere.
You know, I think they were bigger than that, particularly in Europe, in Great Britain. I think maybe there were more hits for that band.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure about that, but it seems to me that there were more songs. I can't think of fucking one of them, but
if this is our one hit wonder, I expect we'll at least triple our audience, which will take us to about 12.
I went to the internet when I was trying to think about how to discuss this topic, and I came across Rolling Stone's top 10 of one-hit wonders. The number one hit wonder, according to Rolling Stone, was "Take on Me" by a-ha.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, yeah, that's about right. That's I can't think of anything else they ever did.
But they also made one hell of a video. That was like the coolest ass video.
Yeah, and it gets referenced all the time these days, I've noticed. There was, in fact, what did I just watch? Oh, I was watching the TV show that you had recommended a while back called Happy Endings. And I think they do a whole episode, or part of an episode is shot in that style, that weird a-ha video style. I thought that'd be more interesting than it was. It came out of my mouth. I was like, well, that's fucking boring as hell. That show's like 15 years old, and who cares?
A show that no one knows.
Right.
By a one-hit wonder band for a video made 40 years ago. So, we are just so in touch with the times, dude.
That's the whole point of this podcast, is the show. Just how in tune we are with what's going on right now. As far as one-hit wonders are concerned, to me, I have two categories. One is the category that everybody considers to be one-hit wonders. It's the Rolling Stone top 10 list type of category. And I think that's probably the legitimate definition of one-hit wonder, because what's a hit if, unless everybody was listening to it at least for a while. But I also have these songs that in my head are one-hit wonders only because I loved them, or in some cases complete albums, but I loved them and listened to them constantly and couldn't wait for the next one to come out. And then it just never happened. They disappeared off the face of the earth. So a lot of my picks or suggestions or discussion today is going to be about hits that they weren't even really one hit wonders. They were just Tom's hit wonders. And it caused me to think about this topic, caused me to think about that a lot, and how many bands where they had a song I loved and played on repeat for a year, and no one has any idea who they are at all.
Yeah, thinking about this, I remember, and I still can't figure out which one it was, an album that I bought because they had a quote unquote popular song. And we didn't have the internet back in college, so it had to have been on the radio or something.
Right.
And I feel like it was like a band called Darling Cruel. I mean, I don't know how I do. I'm the same way. Like I'd have a song that I would be into and I'd go buy the album. And oftentimes the rest of the album sucked and that one song was okay. But yeah, nowadays I have my own one hit wonders. Like my favorite song that I think is like one of the catchiest songs in the history of the world is that one you sent me. And the guy has like 2 followers on YouTube Music. You went and saw him.
Is it? It's not that Coot Wilson
Yeah, it's
song, is it?
Coot Wilson. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love that song. It
It it should be a one hit wonder. It's like the catchiest song in the world. I've not listened to any of his other stuff, and me and 3 other people enjoy the hell out of him.
Yeah, he's one of the guys I thought of because he has, as far as I know, he has an EP, and that's it. There's nothing else. And I, like you, yeah, I just looked on my iTunes library. He did an EP called 5 a.m. Fog, 4 songs, came out in 2016. Every single song is a great Americana song, and you're the only other person I know who knows about him, and that's because I told you
Yeah,
about him.
exactly.
So he's one of those guys. Like he's a one-hit wonder without the hit.
Yep.
I have a couple of those, and I've been doing that since way back. And my problem is even these days, if I hear one song I like, I still download their whole album if they have an album or an EP. You know, I don't buy the CD or the cassette anymore like I would have back in the day. But I'm like, well, if they did one, I'm getting them all, and we'll see if there's anything else good in there. And many times there is not. Although in that
Yeah.
case, in Coot Wilson's case, that's a great EP. That I should actually, it's not my recommendation. I completely left him off my list for today's episode, but I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah. So some of these, as you look through this list, bring back memories. Others, I barely know what they are. Like, Come On, Eileen. Everyone knows that song. As soon as it starts, everyone starts going. In a Big Country by Big Country.
I bought that album.
Nice. Tainted Love has to be one of the catchiest songs in the history of the world.
That one I remember from high school because it would play there was a in Wheeling, West Virginia, they used to have dances on. I want to say they were like Wednesday nights. They were kid dances, under 18 dances or something like that. And they probably played Tainted Love, I don't know, 4 or 5 times over the night because people kept requesting it. So anytime I hear that, that has that weird start. I don't even know what the instrument is where it goes. It's like 3 notes or something, and it must be a synthesizer. And as soon as I hear that, all of a sudden I have zits on my face and I'm standing in the corner nervously.
That's awesome. I think I know all these. I won't go through the whole list except for one. I don't know 96 Tears.
You would if you listened to it,
Okay.
and I won't harm anyone's hearing by trying to hum it or sing it or anything else. But it's older too. I want to say 70s maybe.
Oh, okay.
If you heard the song, you would absolutely know it. And I think it's the kind of song I think you've heard in soundtracks and stuff. Like people will dig it up for that reason. The number 10 song on that list, the first one on our outline here is Turning Japanese by the Vapors.
Yep.
And that's another childhood song, right? And I would never have been able to tell you who the artist was who did that, but that's another one. When you hear the title, you can hear the song playing in the back of your head as soon as you think about it.
All right. I will harm people's ears. Is that the one that goes, I'm turning Japanese? I think I'm turning Japanese. I really think so.
Exactly. And now that will be in my head for the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Awesome. You're welcome.
The one that's on Rolling Stone's list that I don't disagree because I only know of one album they ever put out, but the album The Knack by The Knack and My Sharona. You know, My Sharona is kind of a joke song now if people talk about it. I bought that album, of course, because I loved that song when I was 14 or whenever, however old I was when it came out. But that's actually a really good album. Every song on that album is really well done, and they're all fun pop songs to listen to. That one is one of the bigger surprises to me that they didn't get bigger than they did. I think they put out one more album after that, which I probably also bought and which was terrible. But that one is, it is a one-hit wonder, I think. I don't think that gives the album itself credit. I think a lot of these other songs, it's the only thing you would possibly want to listen to on the whole album.
And I remember that one because it's a weird story, but my next door neighbor when I was growing up, when I was in junior high, I guess, he'd always be a little bit more ahead of time on albums. So he one time I went over just to hang out. He had a pool. So and he played that album for me. And I'm like, that's really good. Like, and he didn't even really like My Sharona. There were a couple other songs that he was all into. And for some reason in my head, I always sort of saw them as in the same category as the Cars. But obviously the Cars took off and became, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame caliber band, and the Knack didn't. And that's the interesting thing because you wonder, you talk all the time about you've made comments about artists dying young and they, maybe had, however many more songs or albums in them. You just wonder if some of these groups just have that one album in
Yeah.
them or that one song. And so it made me think it's not a question from Andy or Jonathan. It's a question from me. So would you rather be an artist who had a one-hit wonder and then you toured for another 20 years and all everyone wanted to hear was that one song? Or would you want to be a very mediocre but solid band and the rest of your life you'd play, smaller venues, no one really knew you, but you had a good time because you could just play whatever you wanted?
That's an awesome question, really. Although, and I think I know your answer as well, but my answer is the second choice
Yeah.
for I think a bunch of reasons. First of all, most of the artists that you and I like to listen to are in that second category, right? I mean, I don't think they would appreciate being called mediocre, and I don't think they are mediocre, but they're not famous, and they're never going to make hundreds of millions of dollars unless somebody finds a song and throws it on a TV show or in a film soundtrack. I don't know. The more I read interviews or see interviews with some of these people that are, what would you call them, journeyman type of performers, the more they seem really happy with their life.
Yeah.
And they're different, even those that have families spend so much time away from their families. And that's the one thing I think would be difficult for me if I were a touring musician. But they just get to write music and sing and play and travel. And most of them seem pretty damn happy. They travel for 4 or 5 months and they're home the rest of the time. And the one hit wonders, if they were smart, they probably put away some money, so they made some cash. But my guess is that Blind Melon really gets hard of hearing people yell, "No rain, no rain."
Yeah, and I guess mediocre isn't the right word, but moderately successful, if not below that. So that's more what I meant, because at least to me, it's more that same thing. No rain. It's like having to play that same song, and that's all anybody wants to hear. Every night for the rest of your life, and that's all you're known by.
I I've got a great story I'm going to tell a little bit later about that kind of effect for a band that wasn't famous at all, and I'm not sure how much it irritated them or whether they were like, "Wow, we really do have at least one fan." Although it is an interesting question, though. A second question is, what if you were just mediocre, like, and you knew it, and you're just like, "Yeah, I'm just playing these kind of half-ass songs, but I get to do it for the rest of my life." Even then, I'm not sure I would say no to that.
So now that I had my question, we do have a question from Jonathan. He's writing in from Hump Tulips, Washington. Jonathan's question this fine morning is, what is the most annoying one-hit wonder of all time? I'm going to let you go first.
I'm going to run with this right now. I can't believe that this song was not on Rolling Stone's list, because this is not just the most annoying one-hit wonder. It's the most annoying novelty song. I don't care what category you put into it. I hate this song, and it's "You Spin Me Round Like a Record" by Dead or Alive. Came out in 1984, which was the year I graduated high school. And I imagine that year, that summer, I probably heard that song 100,000 times. It was constantly on Top 40 radio, which is what I listened to at that point. And it is horrible, horrible song. I don't think they ever made another song or album. If they did, I have no idea. And that's the one, again, at the risk of harming our listeners' ears, that's the one that goes, "You spin me round, round, blah, 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 blah." I can't remember the rest of it. I should. Like a record. It is horrible. And it never should have been made. And I do think that they probably toured for 10 years on the strength of that song alone.
Okay, I'm gonna be a little controversial. I would have said Ice Ice Baby just because he's so annoying, but I'm going with one that it sort of goes back to what you said about like I listened to the album, but it's by Crash Test Dummies. I don't know how many there are. That is the worst song on that album. Like I actually kind of like that album, and that song is horrendous. And now when I hear it, like he's even distorting his voice on the rest of the song. It's just a terrible album. So
I was just going to say that's one of those where I think the album is actually really good.
yeah,
And to the extent that I don't know if they did other albums, to tell you the truth. So I suppose they do fall in the one hit wonder category. But I would agree with you entirely that that song I don't like, but there are three or four other songs on that album that I would, still listen to today with no problem. And I guess that's the thing about Vanilla Ice too, though. Although I know he did more albums, and I know he's still out there in pop culture sometimes, but
dude,
awful.
he's not just out there in pop culture. He's building houses on like HGTV.
Oh, is he? Is he a
Yeah,
reality guy? Yeah,
yeah.
that sounds right.
All right, that brings us to our recommendations. And for season four, what we've decided to do is stick to what we know best, which is recommendations from then. And that would be roughly our college years and a little bit after, like a decade or so. So anything prior to 2000, it can be music, it can be song, it can be music or songs. I'm a brilliant man. It can be music,
You
it
can
can
be music, songs, tunes.
it could be TV shows, it could be movies, it could even be books. So Tom, do you want to start off our recommendations for then for the topic of one-hit wonders?
Yeah, let me give you my recommendation. It is an album from a band called Stealing Horses. And the album title was Stealing Horses. It was from 1985. I found this album at, I want to say it was at Street Side Records in St. Louis my sophomore year. And the cover of the album caught my eye. It was a cassette, actually, I'm sure at that point, but I bought the cassette. The entire album to me was fantastic. This is one of those where they weren't a one hit wonder in the sense that I think I may be the only person who thought that they had a hit, but I thought this was the next great band. I was so excited to listen to. I listened to him constantly. I'm sure he played it for you constantly. I put songs of theirs on mixtapes all the time, and they never did anything else. I tried to find them online. There is another band I think now that uses the name. Maybe I don't think it's the same band, but it's certainly not the same style of music. They were they were definitely an 80s rock band. They had a lead singer who was a woman, and she had a really cool voice, I thought. I just loved all the music on that album. And that's the story I alluded to earlier. There was a bar above the Tivoli Theater in Clayton, Missouri, which was very close to where we went to school. And they played live there. I saw a poster, and at the time they played, I think I had just started dating my wife. And I said, we got to go see this band. They're fantastic. They're so cool. I can't wait to see them live. So we showed up, bought our tickets, went upstairs to where the actual bar was, where the stage was. And there were seven other people there. We bought a couple beers. We sat down. They started their set, and they sounded good. They sounded just like they did on the album. And I listened and I loved it. I was tapping my toes constantly to it. No one else was paying any attention whatsoever, including my girlfriend. Nobody cared. They took their first break, or no, it wasn't that. I yelled from my table because it was one of those situations where it was all little tables all around the stage. I yelled from my table, called out a specific song from their album that I wanted them to play. They responded immediately and played it. I was the happiest guy in the world. I was also drinking like a fish through the whole first set. So by the time the second set came on, I started yelling for the same song again. And the lead singer looked at me and she just shook her head no. She's like, no, I'm not gonna fucking do that, dude. So I love the show. I think I'm the only one who paid attention and stayed through both sets that they played. But they certainly were a one album wonder. I'm not sure it's fair to call them a one hit wonder.
Yeah, and I don't remember. This is all fuzzy now, which is what my blog is going to be about this week is memories and lack thereof. So you and I worked the Spaghetti Factory in St. Louis, and they came in this band. Is that where I met him? I saw him somewhere. Remember, I told you I saw them
Yeah,
in
that sounds
person.
right. And that makes sense. It would have been the right time because
Yeah,
we were
and
working both at
right,
the same place.
yeah, and so you had played them so much, and I looked at the cassette or the CD, whatever it was, so many times that I remember recognizing her specifically because I mean I wouldn't say she was overly distinctive, but I definitely recognized her. So I was talking to him, I was the bartender, and they said they were playing somewhere down there, and I'm like, "Are you guys the band The Stealing Horses?" And they're like, "Yeah," and it's like my roommate loves you. Like it was just, but for some reason, I remember pausing that I wasn't sure if their album had come out yet because I said that you had their album. So I don't know if you got a preview of it or something. Like, I don't know if there was an advance copy. I don't remember, but I remember when I said it, I was like, shit, now I'm sound like an idiot because I don't even know if their album's been fully released yet or not. But you were definitely into them way earlier than anyone else and probably the only one ever into them. But it was a good album. I mean, I fully like I'd always push back on your more popular stuff for obvious reasons, but that one I remember really liking a lot.
Yeah, it really every song was good, and I still listen to that album occasionally. And every time I do now, I'm like, I wonder if they're still alive.
But
They
yeah, I
certainly aren't making music.
no, I go and I look for like singers' names to see if they went off to some other band, and but oftentimes once they're done, unfortunately. So for my recommendation, I went in a similar direction. I also went with an album, but my band feels like it was a little bit bigger than yours was. I went with The Big Prize, the 1986 album by Honeymoon Suite. And the reason I did is when I was prepping for this episode, I was looking through long lists of one hit wonders, and the song Feel It Again by Honeymoon Suite came up. And I was like, that's not fair. They weren't a one hit wonder. Like they had, I had their previous album, which was self titled. It had some good music on it. And I remember specifically, I was probably such a dork. I went and saw them in concert and I had a t-shirt that just said in real big letters on the front, Bad Attitude, which is probably pretty dorky. And on the back said the band's name. But I love that shirt, and it's somewhere along the way I lost it in college, and I was so pissed off. And I remember it's like I'm gonna find that fucker who stole my shirt because I mean, who can hide a shirt that says bad attitude on it?
Dude,
So
I have an admission.
yeah,
No.
you stole it, you fucker. But Feel It Again was in soundtracks on movies. I think it was in a Mel Gibson.
Mhm.
It might have been in one of the his ones with Danny, what was his
Mhm.
name? What was her
Lethal
name?
Weapon is what you're talking
Lethal
about,
Weapon,
right?
yeah.
Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon. I feel like it was in either that the second one or the first one.
Danny
One of those
Glover.
Lethal Weapon. Danny Glover. I had Danny Aiello. I had Danny, the dude on Cheers. Or not on Cheers, his wife is on Cheers. Whatever. Let's just stop talking. Point is, that album was fantastic. The band dropped off significantly. And in my usual way, I think I bought like two more albums of theirs after that. And they got worse and worse. And they're still around making albums. And they're
Yeah, that's
Canadian.
the thing about them, right? Is they I certainly don't feel like they were one hit wonders because I feel like they were on the radio quite a bit and it wasn't always the same song.
No. But so I'm I'm going with a definitive list that I found online. Had to be true because it was online.
Of course.
And it said that that was a one-hit wonder. And that album's pretty solid. I mean, it wasn't fantastic. And I'm sure there's some pretty big clunkers on it, but Feel It Again, Bad Attitude, probably a couple other songs are worth a listen. So that's my recommendation for that.
Well, now we are ready for post facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
What do you got, Chris?
I don't have anything, Tom.
You never have anything. You
It's
never
'cause I-
do.
You know, the problem is I don't talk that much. So it cuts down on my chances of making mistakes. Well, I've said this time and again, you are the primary, I'm the color commentator. So you talk more, so you get a chance to make more mistakes. Looks like you made quite a few.
Yeah, yeah, no, I see it as an opportunity. Although I will say this, one of the things that I wanted to bring up was not your mistake, but was part of your recommendation, I want to say. We were talking about the movie, not the movie, we were talking about the book, The Outsiders, which I always think of in terms of the movie because that movie just,
Yep.
you know, that burned indelibly into my brain. But we were trying to figure out who died at the end of that movie. And I said, and it was me that said it, was that I thought it was Ponyboy, who in the movie was played by C. Thomas Howell. But he's not the guy who died at the end of The Outsiders. It was Johnny, who was played by the Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio. So before anybody emails us, before Joe points out that we were wrong, that's what was going on there.
See, this is how it works. I make a vague statement like somebody dies. Somebody died. As I was referring to the album by Roadside Graves, and I said that the song that I picked was very clearly tied to the movie because it references that someone died. And I'm like, I can't remember who that was. And you jumped in right away and you're like, Ponyboy. I'm like, oh yeah, Ponyboy. And then, you know, so you made the mistake. I was just verifying it. And then
Verifying the mistake.
Yeah, verifying it. So maybe that's a shared post facto, but if you just let me stick with my vague comments like I usually do, no one would have known.
That's true. That's true. But then we wouldn't have anything for post facto. So
That's a good point.
the only other post facto I had was I made a vague statement when I was talking about some of my favorite authors. I made the statement that I would read anything new that they were put out or something along those lines. I was thinking about it in terms of there were three authors that I mentioned. It was William Gay, Cormac McCarthy, and Larry Watson, all authors I truly love. I've read most of what they've written. And I made that statement that I would, you know, I'd read anything they put out. And that's going to be tough for two of them because they're dead. So William Gay died in 2012. And Cormac McCarthy died recently in 2023. And I should have remembered that because it actually struck me. I was really, really kind of down when I saw that he had passed away because I was hoping maybe he had one more book in him. But I won't be reading anything new they write until I guess I'm dead. And then I'll be able to read it in the afterlife. Larry Watson's still alive, by the way. So come on, Larry, let's get another book out.
Yeah, let's get something for Tom to read, damn it. I guess that's it for post facto since I once again didn't make any mistakes.
Error-free.
I'm willing to admit to. Joe Pay, that's a challenge to you. Listen,
There you go.
find my
it.
mistakes. This is the segment of the show that we like to call Staff Picks.
Random, just around the corner from you.
This is Tom and I's attempt to replicate the idea of what I would call New Music Tuesday. And if it wasn't Tuesday, I don't care. In my head, it was Tuesdays. We go into the store on Tuesdays, look for new albums. There'd almost always be a board up at most record stores that would say Staff Picks. So you'd have, you know, Larry recommends these albums, Butch recommends these, and Martha these. So I'd usually go with Butch. He had some good recommendations.
Fucking hated Butch.
Butch was a good guy. You just needed to know him better. It got me thinking though, because this could also be going into Blockbuster and looking for that new DVD. It was probably gone because those fuckers got snatched up quick, or into the bookstore, and books would come out all the time. Those books were always there. Nobody reads. So that's what we're shooting for is looking for that list of staff picks of new stuff that might turn you on to a new artist, new author, a new director, whatever. So, Tom, what do you got?
I am recommending a book that just came out early 2024. I'm hesitating only because I had to look up how to pronounce this dude's name. His name is Karl Uwe Knausgård.
Nice word.
Yeah, I think that the pronunciation is correct. He just released a book called The Wolves of Eternity, and it is the second book in a trilogy. The first book was called The Morning Star, and they refer to it as a trilogy, and there's one major event that occurs in both of them, but otherwise they're not really connected, or at least I have not been able to figure out the connections between them. This guy is a really interesting writer. He does remind me of an author I just recommended and discussed a little bit in our books episode. Haruki Murakami was a Japanese author. This guy also, I believe, writes and then has to be translated, although he's Norwegian or Swedish or something, Finnish. I'm not sure what he is, somewhere from Northern Europe. And he has a very surreal style. His books, as opposed to Murakami's, are a little more grounded, I think, but they still, as you read them, you feel this kind of out of place feeling. It's hard to describe clearly. His books are weird. This book, The Wolves of Eternity, time jumps. It's not a time travel book, but it jumps from period to period. So you're seeing characters earlier in their life and then later in their life and then kind of flashback. There's a handful of characters in The Wolves of Eternity who they all end up being related basically because their parents cheated on their spouses during the Cold War. So the guy from Finland or wherever the hell he is, his dad would travel to the Soviet Union for some reason that nobody even knew he was doing it back when it was being done. There's the suspicion that he might have been a spy or something along those lines. But he hooked up with a woman in the Soviet Union, in Russia, and ended up having a kid. And that daughter is one of the characters in the book. And his son from his marriage is another character in the book. And there are long stretches in these books that are very, what's the word I'm trying to think of? There's a lot of discussion of death, very philosophical, and they discuss defeating death in terms of both religious and scientific terms. And my description is basically making it sound very boring, I think, and it's not boring at all. You really get into the characters. He paints very specific scenes with these characters. The interaction between characters is really well done. And I very much like The Morning Star, which is a completely different set of characters than The Wolves of Eternity. Wolves of Eternity I read through in a hurry. I thought it was really well done. And the only reason I can see so far that they're considered a trilogy is because in both of them, there's this weird star that appears in the sky. In The Morning Star, it's central to the whole story. In The Wolves of Eternity, it shows up about 2/3 of the way through the book, and people comment on it and how weird it is that this bright object is up in the sky, daytime or nighttime, and nobody can explain it. But that's it. It's kind of in the background of it all. So I'm really curious to see what the third book is going to be, because I'm hoping it's going to tie this all together. Because all the news reports are that they can't figure out what it is. They don't know if it's an asteroid or it's a meteor or something else, whether it's some kind of a religious symbol or it's something that the astronomers are going to be able to figure out. So I really enjoyed the book on its own, but it definitely made me want to see what he's gonna put out. And I think the next book is supposed to come out in late 2025. So the pick for me is The Wolves of Eternity by Karl Uwe Knausgård, and it was published this year by Penguin Books.
Nice. That sounds very interesting to me.
Yeah, I think you'd really like it, and I promise you it's better than how I just described it.
Sounds really cool. But you did pronounce his name different the second time than you did the first time. So we'll we'll turn that into a preliminary post facto. All right, I went with very easy to pronounce names, and I chose this 100% for Tom. This is a TV show coming out on Peacock, which we all watched for the Olympics. So they got our extra $7 for that 1 month of TV. So now I'm going to stick with it and watch a couple shows. The first one I'm going to watch is a show called Teacup, which is a strange title for what sounds like a terrifying new series. And it's written, the series is based on a book by my buddy Robert McCammon, who I talked about at length in our last episode. And Tom may talk about this wolves thing almost like it's kind of a scary book. Tom's a big pussy.
Hey, come on, man.
You probably can't use that. I don't mean it in any sort of way other than you're a wuss.
I was going to say, not in a derogatory way, no.
But it's based on Robert McCammon's book called The Stinger, which I'm not even going to try to describe it, because I'm going to read a quick summary on the back of one of the books, the book that I have. So here's a quick description. 2 aliens arrive in a remote Texas town. One, an engaging waif, pursued by the other, a relentless bounty hunter sent to bring her back. The townsfolk rally around the fugitive, but Stinger, all caps, by the way, the bounty hunter covers the town with a force field. No one can escape as he begins his search using replicants of the town's inhabitants, exact copies of humans, but with silver claws for hands and razor blade teeth. Stingers! Exclamation point. So what happens is the townfolk have to rally together to defeat this horrendous and scary bounty hunter. And I'm guessing that Tom will never watch the show. In fact, the review that I read said that they are trying to make it so scary that they're not even revealing some of the parts to the actors to try to get their more natural reactions or something. I don't know. Sounds interesting. So check it out. Brand new series on Peacock called Teacup. And again, I have no idea why they're calling it Teacup. I'm just happy Robert McCammon has a show finally.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I might want to watch that show.
Okay.
I'm not sure that the sci-fi part of it, I think, interests me. I don't want to be scared.
We know.
I mean, I don't want to be scared. But I may be willing to watch that one.
All right, I'm going to watch it out. Oh, I'm going to watch it out. How does that mean? I'm going to watch it out.
I want to watch it out till it's done. I also realized that you did a really smart thing. That I don't know why I didn't just try to find how somebody else described the book, because I did such a horrible job describing the wolves of eternity.
Dude, you did not, and that's me. Like I have no original thoughts. I just listen for other people to voice what I'm thinking.
But I'm going to do this. So I don't know who this dude is. He says the second installment in Knausgaard's third series is a prequel to the first book, The Morning Star, and it introduces a dynamic that suggests the possibility of an infinite arc looping back to explore quotidian situations in the past more than moving the eerie post-mortality supernatural story forward in the present. Well, that makes less sense than what I said.
Exactly.
Never mind.
Don't judge yourself so harshly, you big wuss. That's our staff picks for the week, and that takes us to our playlist picks. You want to introduce that, Thomas?
Sure. So every week, every episode, we each suggest a song for our third song in playlist. That playlist can be found on Spotify, on Amazon Music, YouTube Music, and Apple Music. We add our 2 songs each week. We usually add them before the episode airs. And the idea is to build a playlist over the length of the season with songs that match with our topic for the day. So our topic for the day today is one-hit wonders. And my playlist pick is a song called Hurricane Room by The Blessing, from an album they put out in 1991 The album is titled Prince of the Deep Water. This is another one of those, I'm not sure if it constitutes a one-hit wonder because I'm not sure if anyone else ever listened to The Blessing. But it came out in 91. It came out when the internet didn't exist. I know I heard this song in particular a lot, so it must have been on the radio because I can't imagine another way that I would have learned of it. I bought the album. This is another album, frankly, that I still listen to with a lot of regularity. I think it's a great album. I also think they put out one more after this and then completely disappeared into the night. But listen to Hurricane Room on Third Song in Season 4. That playlist is updated and ready for you to check out.
I laughed so hard when you said that because I was looking at the script and I didn't put down my playlist pick because you said usually we put them out before the episode, which I didn't do. And I swear to God I did it, but I guess I must not have. So it didn't take me long though. I'm going with another one that I think the collection of songs is far deeper than the one hit wonder, but the band Del Amitri song Roll to Me is their one hit wonder. I'm actually going to go with a song that was a little probably less popular, but Kiss This Thing Goodbye, which is one of my favorite songs by Del Amitri. It is from their album it's from their 1989 album Waking Hours, which I think is actually a really, really good album. It's the first song on that one. Not quite as popular as I said as Roll to Me, which I do like that song. It's just played so much. I skip it nowadays when it shows up in my little playlist. But Kiss This Thing Goodbye is a great one. That's my playlist pick for this week.
So you're the reason I listen to Del Amitri. I love Del Amitri, and that's definitely one of those bands where I and this isn't unusual, I guess, but I couldn't figure out how it got to me. Because I own, I think, every album they've made. And I agree, by the way, Kiss This Thing Goodbye is fantastic. And I don't remember it getting radio airplay. And I couldn't ever quite figure out why I still love that band as much as I do.
Yeah, and they faded out a decent amount after Waking Hours. But between that album and the one that Rolled to Me is on, I think there's at least 7, 8 or so songs that are really, really solid. I thought they had a nice little period of putting out good music. Roll to Me was definitely huge. But I agree. I think Kiss This Thing Goodbye is my favorite one by them.
I remember starting to listen to them around the same time that I started to listen to Bodines.
Yes.
And they're similar bands. They're not identical by any means. And I think Del Amitri is a little more mellow and melodic, maybe, and Bodines tend to rock a little bit more. But those are kind of bookends for me of that period of time where I think I started out with Bodines, found Del Amitri, and both of those, like you said, their songs come up on my favorites playlist all the time. And I think that's it, my friend.
I think so, although it's not.
Well, I was wrong. Never mind.
For the first time in the history of our podcast, I'm the one to tell you that you forgot to rate.
Ah, yes.
I did too, but at least I get to tell you that you forgot to.
That's right. Son of a bitch. Let's
So
go back.
all the way back to our recommendation, Stealing Horses. How many egg burritos with sour cream might you think it has?
I am going to give Stealing Horses 4 out of 5. Egg burritos with sour cream. And that's probably more just because it has a special place in my heart. That particular album is just one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I am likewise going to give The Big Prize 4 out of 5. It's a really solid album, and they made one hell of a t-shirt. So I'd give the t-shirt a 5 out of 5, but I can't find the fucking thing.
I remember you wearing that t-shirt.
Yeah. I'll give the album 4 out of 5. All right, that brings us to the end of the episode. Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois. If you'd like to contact us, our email is thirdsongin@gmail.com. You can do the same on our website. There's a contact us link. You click on that, send us a message. That'll also go to our email. And Tom and I are checking it every day, and we'll respond almost immediately because we will be so surprised that somebody wrote us. I'd also encourage you to check out the website a little bit more. I was finally able to make some much needed changes to it. The website is thirdsonginpodcast.com. We finally have our staff picks up. We revised the navigation a little bit to make it a little bit easier for folks. So you can go to one page and click right off to staff picks, recommendations, and as mentioned, which is our site that has links to information on our various guests and some really useful stuff there. You can listen to our podcast directly from the website. You can have direct links to the playlist that Tom and I mentioned a little bit earlier. There's also little videos that we put out for each episode that we think best typifies or exemplifies what the episode was about. Usually try to make you laugh or at least give you a really cool music video to watch.
Yeah, speaking of the website, Chris has done a really good job both of creating it in the first place and the new modifications, the new additions, I think are really, really well done and should help simplify things for listeners who are looking for our recommendations or some of the things we've talked about. So please check out the website. Also, please follow us wherever you listen to your podcast, rate and review us, give us all your stars. Download the podcast if you can. Same thing for our playlists. We have playlists for all 4 seasons. They are listed on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. They are titled Third Song In Season 1, Third Song In Season 2, etc., etc. Third Song In Season 4 is incomplete, but we update it every week so that you can listen even before the new episode drops and see if you can figure out our theme. You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris and Tom. Thanks for listening. Speaking of, I'm not speaking anything. I thought that'd be more interesting than it was.